tonight at 8 on MSNBC.
When you invest in the stock market, I think there's no lifeguard on duty, no cops walking the beat, no one making sure that the playing field is kept level, or protecting individual investors from the high-frequency traders who scalp stocks in order to skim from the system, and the champions of dangerous financial innovations that have created a shallow and unsafe market, one that lacks credibility with ordinary investors. Historically, protecting you has been the job of the SEC. That organization abandoned its mission during the laissez-faire years of the Bush administration. And for a long time under Obama, it looked as though nothing would change. But lately, there have been some encouraging signals that the regulators are getting back on the case. And these signs, along with the passage of financial regulatory reform and Goldman Sachs' record $550 million settlement with the SEC, make us want to hear from our man in the United States Senate, the guy who understands these issues better than anyone else in Washington, if not Wall Street, Senator Ted Kaufman from Delaware, who recently wrote a great piece for the New York Times Deal book last week about the need to restore rule of law on Wall Street and how Goldman's settlement with the SEC represents a good start. Kaufman is one of the most sophisticated legislators in Washington, and he's on your side. I can't think of anyone better to help us understand the new post-FinReg world and what still needs to be done to make our markets safe than Senator Kaufman. Sir, welcome back to Mad Money.
Hey, Jim, good to be on.
Thank you, Senator. A lot of people on Wall Street think that Goldman got the best of the SEC, that they ended up not having to pay that much, stocks going up. Do you think they did get the best of our SEC?
No, I don't think they got the best of the deal. They're great spinners. I mean, nobody's better at spinning than Goldman is. I mean, they're good at everything they do. And but no, if you go back and read their reports, remember when this was brought? I mean, I always go back to the course, and I usually look at things the way it's set up. They said that nothing, they're not going to lay a glove on us. There isn't a single thing to do this. This is just they're doing it for political reasons. See all this stuff. Now they're paying $550 million, the largest settlement, financial settlement in history. I mean, this is not good for them. And so, but no, are they going to try to spin it as well? You know, it was really a small settlement, the rest of it. I think clearly they lost and the SEC won.
Do you think they'll be up to the same behavior after this, or is this a behavior changer?
Oh, I don't know. You know, honest, Jim, and I really mean this, you would know better than me, but I think the cumulative effect, I mean, if this is the only case that's brought and we win, then I don't think it'll affect behavior much. But remember, one of the first things I did when I got to the Senate was get together with Pat Leahy's chairman of the Judiciary Committee, a Democrat, and Chuck Grass, Republican. We passed a bill to put $175 million into the Department of Justice and SEC and the FBI to go after these guys. And this is what's starting to roll out. Now, if this is the only case they bring and nothing else happens, I don't going to modify any behavior. But it's really, really important that we modify the behavior that believes. And you know as well as I do, and the people know. People on Wall Street really believe they can get away with this stuff, and you can't have that be the impression out there. So they're going to be going after more. I think this is just the beginning, but we'll see.
Now, Senator, one of the things that you and I have talked about that worries me, I had really felt the SEC starting to go down the right path here. Yeah. If I were the SEC and I got handed 2,000 pages of regulation, even if they added a couple hundred people, I would say, hey, listen, I'm trying to level the playing field, but you know what? Congress just gave me a bill, and I got to spend the next 6 months going through this. Isn't that what's going to happen?
Well, by the way, no. Look, Jim. I've been hanging out at this place. I first came down to work with Vice President Biden in 1973. No senator gets the bill they want. I would not have written the bill this way. In balance, it came down to I really thought it was more important that we pass this bill than not. But no, I'm not happy about it. As you know, we've talked about it before. I wanted to reinstate Glass-Steagall. I want to get back to the point where we actually lay down rules and then let the regulatory agencies, settle the differences. Good fences make good neighbors. Set up good fences and then have the SEC and the CFTC and the others patrolling, FDIC patrolling those fences. But the decision made by the Senate and the Congress was to go ahead and flip a lot of this stuff back to the regulatory agencies. And as you know in that speech I gave last week, I'm very concerned about how the regulatory agencies can handle this because they already have their hands full. You know, you and I have talked about before this whole high-frequency trading market structure study. That is a big deal. And I'm afraid that many of these new proposals are just going to wash over them. But they have good people. The other thing that's good to me is the enforcement division is totally separate.
Right.
So I think Rod Kazami and those guys, they'll still be doing their job. I know Lanny Brewer at the criminal division and the post of the FBI are ready to, really do some work. So I think that's good. But no, does it concern me? Absolutely does. Would I have done it this way? No. But it's better than not passing the bill.
All right, Senator, when you ask about behavior change, let me give you a thesis, which is the one that I get from my acquaintances, not friends on Wall Street. When you pay people $10, $15, $20, $30 million, They feel emboldened and know that it doesn't matter what they do to the client.
Exactly.
I mean, they frankly have made so much money, they don't respect the client.
You got it. No, I think you're absolutely right. No, I think there is an arrogance. There really is. I mean, and I'm not saying, you know, I have friends on Wall Street. You do too. You must admit there's certain arrogance about, you know, we can do anything we want and get away from it. That's one of the reasons why we have to do that. That's why we need the regulators back on the beat. I mean, I remember a politician once said about George Bush 1. He was born on third base and he thinks he hit a triple. There are guys out there making $50 million. I think they're geniuses, and you know it ain't that kind of deal. It ain't that tough. And you go back and read The Big Short. You know, in the beginning, and Michael Lewis talks about he thought all this was going to end in the '80s, and it didn't. So we got to get some sanity back. I think putting regulators on the beat, actually having them out there doing it, will make a big difference. I think going after the people that committed the crimes are doing it. But the other thing is the Congress has got to continue its oversight. It's got to keep watching all these things to make sure that that this is implemented, and it does. But the other thing is, you know, Jim, and you know I know, somebody on Wall Street's got to wake up one morning and say, you know, this is despicable. We've got to get an ethics back on here. That was what the ethics that made America great. And the ethics is not, you know, like you read in The Big Short. I can't even use the language, but remember where he talks about, I just was waiting to see how the guy was going to blip me.
Right.
You know, I mean, that cannot be the ethics on Wall Street. And I'll tell you what it's going to do. It goes back to what you and I talked about. The reason I got into this, and that is the credibility of our markets. If people feel that's what's going on in the marketplace, and let me tell you, a lot of people feel that way, the markets are going to die. We're going to kill the goose that laid the golden eggs. What is it this year? We've had 53 IPOs on, and 320 in China. Come on, guys. God didn't reach down here and say that we've got to be successful in this thing. We've got to clean up our act and get going if we want to keep the markets credible.
You're dead right. People don't care about this market. They're leaving it in droves, and they're leaving it because precisely what you said, and that's why it's so important you come on the show. I see it. I've loved these markets all my life. I see people leave it every day. People want to be in anything but stocks. Anything.
Exactly.
All right, Senator.
It's really scary.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Senator Kaufman.
Always enjoy it. Anytime.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Great stuff. Mad Money's back after the break.
If you haven't seen TV's best show, please.